morning to you and welcome to the newspaper review section of the AM Cafe. My name is Folashade Ogurindi and I have with me in the studio today a guest analyst. His name is Mr. Shino Loremiko. How are you doing, sir?
Fine, thank you.
A very good morning to you.
Good morning to you too.
And how was the weekend?
It was sluggish. There was consistent cut in public power supply.
And that's part of the stories that made the headlines this Monday morning.
I will not be surprised.
All right. So let's go straight to the newspaper review this morning. I'll start with the Punch newspaper. My front story says 30,000 minimum wage. LRC chapters set to write governors on implementation. The writer says Ekiti Labour to meet government on May 1st. You can find the story on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. 10 die in Ogun, Edo multiple crashes. You can find that story on page 4. State police not solution to banditry, ACF. You can find the story on page 12 of the Punch newspaper. And just above the masthead, there's a story here that says poisonous pomo in Lagos markets. Health Ministry wants 3 suspects arrested by government. You can find a story on page 10 of the Punch newspaper. Another story here says EFCC presses fresh charges against Bauchi governor-elect. If you're curious to know what exactly is happening, just go straight to page 12 of the Punch newspaper. Lagos Rivers Lagoon Delta made 2.71 trillion naira IGR in 5 years. That story can be found on page 37 of the newspaper. Now, Mr. Shino, this story here is saying LNFC chapters set to write governors on implementation. That's with regards to the 30,000 naira minimum bill. Now, we're going back to the 30,000 naira minimum bill, and it seems more or less like, you know, people are scared of what is happening. All pressure groups and stakeholders are beginning to wonder what exactly is happening. So what are your thoughts on this, sir?
It's not surprising. When you talk about money, it goes with a lot of sentiment and emotion. For reluctant governors, these are the times to be dragging their feet, to be giving all sorts of excuses. And for the workers who have been waiting for the increment for so long, this is the time to look up to their unions and see how goodies can be brought to their dining tables if they have one at home at all.
All right. And the story here also says that 10 die in Ogun, Edo multiple crashes. And I also have a story here, poisonous pomo in Lagos markets, Health Ministry wants. And I think this story has reoccurred over and over again, where the Ministry of Health warns severally that, you know, some people use chemicals to preserve the pomo meat, that's the back of the skin flesh, the cow's skin flesh. So what exactly can be done? Because it seems more or less like there are over and over warnings go out. Well, how can the perpetrators be caught and, you know, stopped finally?
When you are talking about public health, the stakeholders are numerous, and there has to be continuous education, mobilization, monitoring of the stakeholders. It's good we are talking about Pomo. The same thing, same problem we confront with those that consume frozen fishes, frozen chicken, frozen turkey. You are not sure of the chemical substance that is used to preserve those things. But since we are talking about consumption of these suspected poisonous food items, it is a time for all stakeholders to be proactive. And the stakeholders are mostly health officials in the Ministry of Agric, in the Ministry of Health. And consumers themselves need to be extra careful. Even when you have these products, you need to boil them to a level where you can be rest assured that if there is any poisonous substance, the heat of consistent boiling could have reduced or eliminate it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shola. Let's go straight to the Vanguard newspaper. The top story here says economy bleeds as power system collapses. The rider says generation drops to 2,039 megawatts. Homes, factories suffer outages. NGC, TCN yet to complete maintenance to Escravos Lagos pipeline. Just below, beside the picture here, federal government's new payroll system dubious, says as you can find the story on page 11 of the Vanguard newspaper. I have no regrets joining APC, says Senator Akpabio. You can find the story on page 41 of the Vanguard newspaper. This story here says economy bleeds as power system collapses. And our Minister of Power keeps saying that, Nigeria is good to go, like we're improving, we have more megawatts production of power and everything. But this story here says that the generation of power has dropped to 2,039 megawatts. Homes and factories are, suffering. And we know that power generation is majorly what is crippling the Nigerian economy. What would you say with regards to this?
It's interesting. We are good to go, no doubt, but the reality of it is that there is no power supply at homes, there are no power supply at offices, there are no power supply at factories. And when you look at the sustainable development goal, the first on the item there is to eliminate extreme poverty. In a situation where a family of 3, a family of 5 needs to use their last reserve to purchase petrol or run their generator, it's a sad home. And same thing as we are talking of the new launch to the new minimum wage. Factories, companies are providing more funds and logistics to run alternative power supply to public utility. And that doesn't mean that at the end of the month, the discos will not bring their estimated bill if you don't have a prepaid meter. So it's a lot of wastage and drain to individuals, to families, to corporate organizations, to small-scale industries, to factories, and it does not help economic growth. It's painful that this is even coming towards the end of an administration where people should be in a happy mood that an administration is going, a new flesh of governance is coming up. Unfortunately, the spirit is down.
Yes, and there seems to be this recurrent problem with power generation in Nigeria, because you would think that a country full of rich resources would not find the power generation and power distribution a problem, because you find out that even with the 30,000 naira minimum wage, the person, the worker who you've paid 30,000 naira would still have to buy petrol or diesel, to provide basic electricity for himself or herself. So I think it's high time the government does something about this issue. Now, there's a top story above the masthead of the Vanguard newspaper. Insurance claims rise faster than premium income. You can find the story. We've uncovered new scam to defraud candidates, says JAM. You can find the story on page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper. EFCC arraigns Bauchi governor-elect for alleged bribe taken today. That story is on page 9. Ekiti Oba returns 6 months after abdicating throne. That story is on page 13 of the Vanguard newspaper. Now let's go straight to the Nigerian Tribune. We have a very interesting story here, and the headline story says, how 6 directors cost Onohe is jailed. That story is on page 4 of the Nigerian Tribune. Apex Court has 3 claimants to finance director seat. Now, Mr. Shino, this story here is saying 6 directors cost Onohe his job. Now, that story is by the Nigerian Tribune. What are your comments about it? Because if you go into the details of the story, it was said by the Nigerian Tribune that Onohe did not do what he was supposed to do when he found out that these 6 directors, were found wanting in their jobs. And the presidency, the presidency went after him like they needed to, who was the one who was eventually, sacked. So
I think we need to be very cautious. In the beginning, the CJ did not find himself in this mess as deep as this. I don't know why is it that it's at this stage that we are getting another clue that it was his inability to decisively decide on alleged corruption of subordinates to him. These are fresh facts. What we were told in the beginning was as if all the houses in Sokoro is owned by the CJ, and when trial went on, it was like it was only 3 houses, not 5. We were given the impression as if all the accounts in all foreign accounts belongs to him. Now we are told this is 3. Now this one is coming. Whatever may be the case, if we really want to confront the issue of corruption, we need to do it strategically and systematically. We should not just be coming out with facts and news item at batches. We should be more strategic so that this problem that some people have called cancer, corruption, can be decisively addressed and give the younger persons hope that government is really serious to eradicate or minimize this problem of corruption.
Okay, not facts coming out after the die has been cast already. All right, Astoria says ASU rejects federal government's verification the exercise for payroll system. If you're curious to know what exactly is happening there, you can go to page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune. Why Buhari APC are desperate to remain in power. PDP. You can find that story on page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune. The story here says Ekiti Oba returns 6 months after abdicating throne. That story is on page 7. TUC Serap rejects life pension for Bayelsa lawmakers. That story is on page 7 of the Nigerian Tribune. Why we shut down 4 power plants, says TCN. The story is on page 10 of the Nigerian Tribune. 371 IDPs rendered homeless as fire razes Borno camps. That story is on page 7 of the Nigerian Tribune. This story is quite pathetic, I must say.
Which of the stories?
The IGPs.
Okay.
371 IDPs rendered homeless as fire razes Borno camps. These people are already homeless. They're displaced already. What can be done to make their lives, a bit comfortable?
Sincerely, it is not only a painful development, it's like a scandal. The refugees have never known peace since the eruption of the social crisis that gave them the status of refugees. If they are not raped, their food items will have disappeared. If their food items have not disappeared, somebody will have collected huge sum of money to make the camp or the hostel more friendly and services delivered.
Last week we read that the children in the IDP camps are eating onion leaves.
Yeah.
So they are not only starving,
they are not starving.
They are displaced from their original homes.
But
now these camps that ought to be like a support to their misfortune is being raised by fire.
Some times ago there used to be this joke in the human rights community that if Mandela was serving his prison terms or jail term in Nigeria, he would have died long ago. So he's lucky that he was in a good society or environment like South Africa, where he could even pursue further studies. So the same thing is happening at the refugee camp. If you really want to see how backward planning is, how backward social services is, go to the refugee camp. If there is water today, there won't be electricity tomorrow. If there is electricity tomorrow, there will be insecurity. If you overcome the problem of insecurity, funds meant for them will have disappeared. And I feel worried. Almost every week, there will be one national news item from the refugee camp. And it's sad. It's not supposed to be so. A refugee camp should be a place of comfort, a place where you can have hope that yes, you have a government, you have a state, you have an administration, you have social justice being dispensed despite the calamity that has befell on you.
Yes, and I think the root cause of these issues at the IDP camps would be their displacement by the issue of Boko Haram. So I think if the root cause can, Nigerians would feel that if Boko Haram can be completely, eradicated and sent back in a way from Borno State and other states that have been affected, these, Nigerians can go back to their homes and settle like normal Nigerian citizens. And I hope the Nigerian government, does something about this as soon as possible. Now let's go to the Guardian newspaper. The story here says, outrage as Dixon signs bill for Bayelsa lawmakers' life pension. The writer says, ex-speaker to get 500,000 naira monthly. Stakeholders begin protest today. Now, and the story here says, 15 dead in gun battle with bombing suspect in Sri Lanka. You can find the story on page 56 of the Guardian newspaper. Over Akron Road that President didn't see cuts into two. That's quite amazing. Find the story on page 12 of the Guardian newspaper. Why Buhari ruling party are desperate to retain power by PDP. You can find the story on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. Thank you so much, Mr. Shino, for coming today.
Thank you. Thank you, viewers.
Interesting with you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Continue to have a productive week ahead.
Yeah, thank you, sir. And that's all we can take on the newspaper review today on the program today. Do join us for more newspaper review for the following days. Thank you so much for coming, for watching. I am Fola Shadi of Birinde.